about is it Narus and Verint and these Israeli companies and their software, and what was the controversy back when your book came out, The Shadow Factory, in 2007?
Yeah, well, what I thought was really fascinating when I was writing my last book on N.S.A, The Shadow Factory, was when I was looking into these companies that that were given access to all this intelligence, or all this private communications in the U.S. A company such as Narus, for example, was actually formed by Israelis and largely formed in Israel, although they had an office in California. And what Narus did was sell to N.S.A all the equipment for deep packet inspection. In other words, the hardware and software that was used in the secret rooms, such as in San Francisco, to sift through all the incoming traffic and then look for whatever NSA puts on its watch list, names of people, email addresses, anything that they're looking for. So that's why I made a point of discussing it in my book, was because here you have a company that was largely formed by intelligence people from another country that was putting this equipment in a room that was analyzing and intercepting the communications of private Americans. And another company called Verint was very similar. They were being used by, I think it was by Verizon, where Narus was being used by AT&T. Verint was being used by Verizon, and at one point in Australia, who had also bought some of this Verint equipment and software. The Australian government discovered that some of that information was being sent out from its repositories in Australia to a foreign country, which I just assume would be Israel, and they threatened to cancel the suit. That came from a confidential document I got from the Australian government, and so it shows that not only are these companies allowed to get access to all this data, there's been instances where they've exfiltrated this data to someplace else, to another foreign country.
And it's funny now with these Snowden documents, I guess we could see how the argument took place in the office that, well, so what? We already have a memorandum of understanding with the Israelis that they can have everything anyway. So if they got the best software for getting everything, we might as well let them. Who cares if they have a back door? We're letting them in the front door. It's wide open.
Yeah, exactly. So who knows what the discussions were, but certainly it didn't sound like there was anybody that was raising any major objections at NSA, because they gave them full access, and that's more access that they even give to their Five Eyes partners.
Oh, and you know what I've been meaning to ask you, Jim, is discrepancy in my understanding about just how much audio they are getting. Do they have their computers, quote unquote, listening to for keywords? How much of it are they saving? I don't remember all my footnotes anymore. I used to be really good at this, but somewhere it stuck in my head that they intercept 80-something% of all landline calls and 100% of all mobile calls. And they're working on making it more. And I thought maybe I had learned that from you, either from your book or from your interview with William Binney, or I'm not sure. But then it seems like that is decidedly not part of the Snowden revelations, that they're actually listening to all of us. They say, no, it's just the metadata, quote unquote just, and we all know metadata accounts for a lot. But the point being, are they listening to us or are they not listening to us, Jim?
Well, my understanding is that first of all, they, with regard to metadata, ever since 9/11, they've been collecting all the metadata. That means all the metadata for telephone calls, for example. So anytime somebody calls somebody, anytime you receive a call or make a call, there's a record of that. Anytime, anybody old enough to pick up a telephone is making a call in the last 7 years or the last decade or so. And then NSA has a record of that. They keep records of that, and that's what some of the controversy is over now, as to whether to stop that. And up until just a few years ago, they used to do the same thing for all the metadata regarding email. So email, anytime anybody sent or received an email, there'd be a record of that. And as far as I know, none of that has ever been destroyed or anything. So there's probably a decade's worth of everybody's email being held by NSA. In terms of content, that's different. There's just not enough people to listen to all the conversations. So as far as I know, they don't. What they're doing now, though, with this new facility at Bluffdale, is part of what Bluffdale will be. This is the big NSA million-square-foot, $2 billion sort of external hard drive, big storage center for NSA in Utah. Part of that will be used as what they sort of call a buffer memory. In other words, information will be put in there, including information to and from Americans. And then that information will remain in there for about a month or so until more information comes in and, fills it up and pushes the other information out. So it'll be kept in there. And then if they want to look through that, they have whatever that time period would be, say a month or whatever, to look through all the content if they want.
You're talking audio files, in other words. Audio recordings.
As far as I know, audio and email. Audio is much more difficult because it eats up much more bandwidth and all that stuff. But as far as I know, it's kind of like everything. Well, at least I know it's the email. I'm not sure of the voice content, but it's certainly the metadata. Mm-hmm. And then whoever is actually targeted, however, in that NARS equipment or anywhere else that NSA is targeting the incoming communications or outgoing communications. Mm-hmm. And then that voice data would definitely be captured because the people were on that list. And last time I heard, the watch list was like 1 million names or whatever. So it's somewhat complex in terms of what's kept and what's listened to and all that. And then the other part of Bluffdale will store things forever, for example. So there's a variety of ways they have of capturing, eavesdropping, and storing information.
Mm-hmm. But now on the question of the computers, and I'm sorry because I used the term listening way too loosely there. What I meant was the computers filtering for keywords. Like what movie? The Bourne Identity or whatever, where the reporter says the code word Blackbriar on the phone, and
right.
The computer is listening for the keywords, and if the computer notices the keyword, then it calls the attention to Jones to come over and look at this. But so on that question,
right.
I'm sorry, and so but then on the 80-20, on that question, I think the 80-20 was on how much audio they're actually filtering for keywords. It was 80% of landlines and 100% of mobile traffic. Am I just blowing smoke with that? Do you not remember that or where that came from? Do you know?
I'm not sure. It's in terms of filtering, it's virtually everything coming in or going out of the country because that's where they have the filtering equipment. So
the audio is being scanned. Virtually all the audio is being scanned for flagging later if necessary, kind of thing.
Well, audio is different. I don't think they have the capability to filter all the content of audio as it's going through. They don't have that. They don't have that voice recognition capability that could do everything coming in. What they do is they look for the metadata, the telephone metadata, and they pick that up, and then they keep it. The problem with telephone voice communications is that you got the problem of accents and all that. It's much easier with digital communications because although you may say house and have an accent or use a foreign language or whatever, and it's difficult for the computer to pick up and understand. It's not a problem for a piece of written communications, because you're going to spell house just the same way everybody else spells house.
Sure.
So if you have a computer that can scan, do deep packet inspection, it's mostly on the digital data, email, and that kind of thing. So,
right.
I mean, I'm always on the outside looking in. So,
Sure.
Again, I'm giving this based on what I've been able to put together, but it is extremely complex in terms of what they're doing, and it changes constantly. So,
right.
You just never know. But that's the problem. The problem is that there's very little regulation of NSA, and what regulation there is classified, so nobody knows what it is that they do.
Right. All right. Well, with that, I better let you go. I've kept you over time, but thank you so much for your time. It's great to talk to you again, Jim.
Great. Thanks for having me on your show. It's a great show. Thanks a lot, Scott.
Appreciate
Bye-bye.
it. All right, y'all. That is James Bamford. He wrote The Puzzle Palace, Body of Secrets, A Pretext for War, and The Shadow Factory, about the NSA. He's got a new, in-depth, gigantic, 10,000-word essay about his time in Russia with Edward Snowden, and he's got a brand new article in the New York Times. It's called Israel's NSA Scandal, and it's about these refuseniks, and then taking the opportunity to bring up again this article that ran in The Guardian back last September 11th, in fact. NSA shares raw intelligence, including Americans' data, with Israel.